Hey everybody, it's Gary Garrett from GeForce Quality Solutions, and I want to take a moment today just to discuss something that kind of annoys me a little bit with the consulting and recruiting for consultants or contractor process, especially when it comes to remediation projects. And I'm going to wrap this all up into one video, so if it runs long, I completely apologize. But stay with me on it and you'll understand. So those of you that know me or are looking at my profile trying to get a general idea of who is this bald dude wearing the "If You See the Police Warner Brother" t-shirt. So I am a FDA regulated quality systems consultant. I have worked on remediation projects for warning letters, consent decrees, stop shipments, basically, or even internal discovery remediation projects. I've worked at, probably in the last, my first ever position within a pharmaceutical company coming out of automotive was with a company called Alpharma USPD, and they were under consent decree. So my first exposure to FDA regulations and the remediation process was feet in the fire right off the get-go. After that, it was a couple more years before it happened again, but once I got into consulting, freelancing, whatever you want to refer to it as, I had the opportunity to work on 5 projects over 6.5 years, some very large scale. One was with McNeil, where we revamped the ETQ deviation investigation process. They were using ETQ as their software. That was a great project, great team. QSE 18 was the team I was on. I loved every minute of it. Loved working with everybody that was on that team. They were all committed to a goal. And then I've worked on some where people just really don't understand the impact of a remediation project. And that's something I wanted to touch on today. Excuse me. And I'm a smoker to boot, so this is one of the few times that while I try to make it a rule that I don't want to smoke during my videos, I am going to actually have a cigarette while smoking, or have a cigarette while I'm doing the video. So by and large, those of us that are in the consulting, especially with FDA regulated industries, and we're brought onto projects where we're working on consent decrees or some type of warning letter remediation or something of that nature, we all have the same end goal, at least from the consultant side. I have never met a consultant that has come on board a project and wants to be a part of a dog and pony show. And when I say a dog and pony show is these are the clients who bring in consultants like myself, and basically we are there for show and tell. We're not making any real contributions because we're constantly being overridden by upper management. And mind you, this is the same management that put the organization into the consent decree with their culture, their management style. And one of the things is I do not like working on those types of projects. The minute I find out they are a dog and pony show, I excuse myself from the project and leave. I don't want to be part of those. And it's happened a few times. But what I want to touch upon the most is the recruiters that are constantly reaching out and offering myself. And it's been a busy, since I concluded my last project, which was 2 weeks ago, the amount of emails and phone calls has been probably double to triple what I experienced in the summer. I mean, I am just shocked at the amount of things coming through. And that would be, if you hear the thumping, that would be my little boy jumping around upstairs. So not to get too off track, but what's starting to get to annoy me is that I had a call this morning for a company that was looking for somebody to run the entire remediation project in acting as the head of quality. And I don't have a problem doing this. And I spoke with the recruiter for about 40 minutes, and I said, okay, yeah, I'm very familiar with this. This is not a problem. A lot of this is going to stem from changing the mindset and changing the culture. Very few people are able to do that, but one of those things is to, in order to accomplish that, I feel, is you have to get to know the current staff, find out what their concerns are. So getting to know these individuals, listening to their concerns, will help you identify and reach a solution very quickly. Now, the other piece of that is you have to find out what the management's thinking, and sometimes they show their cards and sometimes they don't. But with this one particular project, I threw my rate out, which they didn't seem to have a problem with. But when I looked at the warning letter after the recruiter gave me the name, I Googled it while I was on the phone with them, and I started looking at it, and I said, wow. I said, how quick are they looking to wrap this up? And they had said between 4 and 6 months, and I said, that's not going to happen. I said, there was 11 observations in the warning letter, and that would have required an entire revamp of all laboratory processes, because there was concerns over the integrity of the laboratory data. I'm going off the cuff. There was significant deficiencies found in the investigation processes and CAPA management processes. This is, again, not just a process problem, but this is a culture problem, and could also be a training problem, since I'm not there. I don't know the extent of the training or expertise of those who are conducting investigations. This sort of happened at my last project, and where I was able to see this by putting in an interim control to review the work prior to it being submitted for initiation. And that's how I found that a lot of the individuals really just didn't know what they were doing. Not their fault. It's just that the previous regime that managed the company was very stingy with training resources and helping staff gain the knowledge. So that was part of it. The other is they didn't really have somebody to mentor them through the process. So, and that was a project that was moving at really quick speed. So I helped in the best way I could, which was finding out the level of experience they had, which I found out was next to none, and then using some techniques such as using examples of write-ups of investigations I had done in the past that are based on M1 methodologies and other processes, of course, the DMAIC process, and explaining to them this is what the key parts of an investigation is. So this telling a story with parentheses on this date, put date here, during the processing, name which step in the batch record, what process it was discovered, and then you go into detail, but make sure you always list the product name, what lot, time of day, etc. And go through. And then it started to change the culture of how people were writing deviations, because there was no time to really sit down and have full-blown training classes for all the staff there. And those type of training classes could go on for 2-3 days at a time to be properly conducted. So the best way I could do it, based on resource availability and what could transpire in that particular time, was to have them send the write-ups to myself or somebody else within the consulting team, and then write these stories back so it actually helped them learn the M1 methodologies. And then in other times, I would go down to the office, and for those that still weren't catching on right away, I would sit one-on-one with them until they were understanding. I said, always use that first email I sent you as a guide. It'll never steer you wrong. So getting back into a little bit, so the recruiters and I are talking, and I throw my rate out there. And but, one of the first things I said, look, just reading this warning letter, I said, this is not going to be able to be accomplished in 4 to 6 months. I said, there is a significant amount of process revision, gap analysis that needs to be performed. And I said, and your job description doesn't state whether these activities have taken place, and being how recent the warning letter is, I'm going to assume no, they have not. But I said, if it's something you can find out, great. And I said, now, the other thing I have to ask you is, what is the engagement level of the individuals that are spearheading the program? So I said, is it C-suite, whomever it is, that wants you to find somebody like me to bring them in. And I said, and the reason I asked this is because if this is going to be another dog and pony show, like one of my assignments was with Pfizer, of all people. And I usually don't name names, but the Pfizer one really irked me the most because of how blatantly they blew off the seriousness of the warning letter that this one particular plant had received. But I said, look, if they're not on board with what needs to be done here, and I said, and just off the top of my head, I said, I'm looking at a complete culture change that's going to need to take place. If the FDA is clamping on laboratory protocols, laboratory processes, investigation processes, manufacturing, I mean, they pretty much nailed them the gamut up and down. And I said, this isn't one. I said, you could have one person like me that oversees everything, but there's going to be individual other people that are going to need to be brought in with a level of expertise for those areas. So apparently the facility has some problems. So you're going to need a facilities expert that's going to come in to remediate what the issues are pertaining to the facilities in addressing the concerns of the warning letter. I have the quality component covered. I can pretty much cover the dock control, change control, validation. That stuff is not an issue. But you're going to have a training culture. Now, I have a training background as well, so I can handle that. But once you take in investigations, CAPAs, change controls, and dock management, that's a lot for one person's plate. And not to mention you're overseeing the rest of the project. And I said, so I would suggest another resource be added there so that it could be taken care of and given the proper time and attention. And I said, because one of the biggest things is with the FDA, if any of you know, they're going to look at the training documentation. They're going to look at the training files, how well the records are kept, what's the history, how do you qualify an individual to be how do you test an individual to consider them a skilled operator or a skilled technician or a skilled specialist in a specific job function. What types of documentation are you using? Are you using the shadowing assessment? Are you using a simple 10-question exam where they have to score like an 80% or above or a 90% or above? I said, I don't know what exists there, and while the warning letter has some caveats listed, it's not telling me the big picture. So my next question is, are they using any type of learning management system as a compliance buyer or whatever? So I said, these are some of the pieces. I said, but my biggest concern is all this. And I said, and this is a large project with 11 items. Is the C-suite fully on board to this type of change? And I said, because this is not overnight. I said, there's a lot of behaviors here that need to be unlearned and a lot of new behaviors that need to be planted. I said, the other piece of this, are they just looking for somebody so that they can go to the FDA? Oh, look, we brought this consultant and we pay him $150 an hour and he's overseeing everything. Well, the FDA really doesn't want to know that. They want to see results. And at some point, you're going to have to come up with results. You can only dog and pony show it for so long. And then things start to escalate very quickly. So one of my big things is with recruiters, I said, and I've gotten a few calls, and some of them are very cheap on this. I said, look, remediation projects are very time consuming. You can't rush them. I said, when you do, things are going to get missed. I said, you need somebody that's dedicated. Sounds like the Godzilla's attacking his play area. Sorry. My Jackson, my little Jack. But I said, you're talking about a time consumption. You're talking about reshaping a culture, and then those that don't want to be a part of that culture, how do you bring them over from the dark side, so to speak, to get the Star Wars references to, the side of doing the right thing the first time, every time. There was something a friend of mine named Jim Galt, who introduced me to the accountability ladder some time ago. And I'll tell you, I'd never seen this concept before. And then immediately when I saw it, I thought, this is perfect. And I have used it ever since in trying to shape culture. And I've tried to use the accountability ladder with past experiences to give people that further insight as to why you want to be up here and not down here. And that's been one of the most successful tools I've ever used. But at the same time, coming back to it, I am at the point I no longer want to deal with remediation projects where it is a dog and pony show, or the C-suite, the same C-suite or management that put them in the predicament with their culture and their management style are not going to really be accepting of the changes because they're stuck in their ways. And those are projects I do not want to be bothered with. So my piece to that is I let the recruiters know. I said, look, I'm interested, but I'll have a great deal of questions for the individual that will be contacting me, and I'm going to be brutally honest about it. And I said, look, if we're clear, these are the guidelines I would like to have. These are the my minimums for wanting to move forward on this. And I said, if the client isn't accepting towards it, then I'm not interested. So I try to set the ground rules right out of the gate. But recruiters need to also rein in the expectations of their client. Now, you guys get sort of a pass because not a lot of you understand what goes on behind this, because you're sales folks for the most part with high level, I wouldn't say extreme high level knowledge, but you have a high level understanding, or a basic understanding, I shouldn't even say high level, basic understanding of the quality management functions and regulatory functions. So you're not always going to be equipped to really understand, engage or quantify or what is truly needing to be done for this type of situation. So it's better to have that conversation with the person that's going to bring you on board. So, and usually if I get to talk to that person, I'll know within 5 or 10 minutes of the conversation whether they're fully on board, which then gets me super excited because I love changing culture, bad cultures into good cultures. I love that because there is nothing more satisfying than taking an organization that's on a very bad path and turning it into an organization that can be the model for quality systems or how they engage in their day-to-day operations under FDA regulations or EU regulations or whatever. So, but many times I don't know if it's the manager having a bad day, but I've run into so many lately that you can automatically tell the dog and pony show effect. And I've called them straight out and I said, look, I don't feel I'm a great fit for this. So I'm going to be brutally honest with you. In our brief conversation, I just have the vibe that you're not fully committed, or you fully don't grasp the severity of what's going on here, and that's only going to be a hindrance in what I do. And I can't have those kind of obstacles because it makes the job harder than it really needs to be. If we can agree that this is going to be the path going forward, great, I'll come on. But, if I'm going to be hitting roadblocks because you don't want to be changing culture, then there's no sense in bringing me on board, because the whole point of these remediation projects is to change culture, change mindset. And the other thing is I explained to them too, especially if the rate comes up, look, I said, I don't work for free. I don't do charity. I am way past the $60 an hour consulting contracting days. You want somebody with experience, somebody that has, I know I don't sound like I have a lot of charisma because my voice is hoarse and a little tired at the moment, but you want to have somebody that can engage with the folks that do the day-to-day. And I'm just as comfortable being not just a coacher and mentor, but being on that same level as a specialist or an associate, because I've been there. I know what they're going through. I understand their frustrations and day-to-day struggles more than anybody else, because I've worked for some great companies and I've worked for some bad ones. So I understand what they're going through, so I can empathize a great deal and hopefully turn that culture around. But the recruiters and the clients need to have an expectation, and you really need to understand what's involved in a remediation project. They're never going to be done within 4 to 6 months if you want it done right. The FDA will know when they come back whether you did a great job executing it, or you did a, lack of a better term at the moment, a half-assed job. You went off half-cocked, whatever. So, and that just leads to more problems down the road. So you need to commit sometimes significant capital investment for this. And I'm not just speaking of what gets paid to me, but, with revamping of processes and reworking lab protocols, there's other things that have to be looked at. Are these equipment problems? Do they have the right equipment to do the right job? Are their methods up to date? Are they still applicable to what occurs today versus their manufacturing process? One person can't contain all that knowledge. You can have one person oversee everything so that everybody can report to them, but at the same time, they have to have the freedom to do what they're experienced at doing. And then somebody like me, who would be the oversight of that, has to have the confidence and trust in that individual that they're going to do the job and to the standard that I feel everybody should be at. And people say, well, Gary, what's your standard? And I said, I have a very low tolerance for skirting the rules. And that stemmed from my first ever pharmaceutical position at Alpharma USPD in Baltimore, Maryland. When I was considered for the role, I had no GMP experience. I had no idea what the 210-211 guide was. So they just wanted me because I happened to have been at the time a CQA. And I asked the recruiter that was bringing me on back then, and I said, well, I'm not interviewing till Monday. I said, I think I'm going to spend the weekend and learn about CFR 210-211. So at the time, this is 2002, so, the CFR, Google, the internet, they're been around a couple of years at this point, but they haven't really become the information superhighway that they are today. And, where they're basically Google's like the all-knowing God of everything. So what I did find, I learned the basics of it. I did some research. I was like, well, what's a consent decree? I didn't really know what that was. Found out the rules behind that. So then when I walked into the interview the following Monday, when I drove down from PA to Baltimore, I said, look, when I introduced myself, I said, let me tell you a little about me. I went, blah, blah, blah. I said, just so you know, I know you're looking at my resume. Like, oh my God, he has no pharmaceutical experience. I said, and I suspect that's one of your biggest concerns, but I suspect the other reason I was contacted is because of my CQA status at that time. And I said, but just so you know, I said, if you're curious of whether I'm committed to this or not, I says, I spent the whole weekend learning about 210-211, how it works, how it is utilized and employed throughout a facility such as yours, and what a consent decree is, at least with what I could find on the internet at the time. And I said, so while I know this would be a full-time position, because this was back in 2002, I want you to know I'm just as committed to whatever you have going on as anybody else. So if you want to take a chance on me, great. I'm fully on board. I'm fully excited. This is something new. I think it's great. But at the same time, I wasn't totally aware. I was very green on identifying culture issues. But in the 10 months I was there before they ended up shutting down the facility, and everybody was laid off, or at least most of everybody, they still had to close it up. I started observing the culture and how they ended up in that consent decree. It was very much of culture of just get it done. Oh, no, we don't have to worry about that. Oh, no, it's not going to affect anything. It caught up with them eventually, but the problem is that culture never changed during the consent decree. Now, I was brought on as a full-time employee. I wasn't a consultant. First gig in FDA-regulated pharma, but by the time I was done, I literally watched how that continued mindset and culture, which never changed, led to on-time deliveries dropping from 92% to 8%. The loss of huge contracts because they used to make generic OTC and prescription products, mostly liquids. So I literally watched the on-time shipping go to hell. I watched them lose contracts with Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, which literally got to the point where Used to be a 24-hour operation. It went down to a 2-shift operation. Then eventually they didn't need second shift anymore. So that's that experience, and then understanding the severity of what skirting the rules could lead to, which is a contaminated drug product that has the possibility it could kill somebody, was enough for me to maintain my standard in following procedure and setting the tone for the expectations I want within a quality system, how I would remediate it, lead it, construct it. And that's the biggest thing. And I think a lot of recruiters need to have these conversations with their clients and get them to understand what is really involved and why somebody like me is going to charge the rates that I charge. And have them also understand that you have to be committed to a project like this. And I think that's where things get a little blurred, so to speak. So that's something I just wanted to touch upon today. It's something, as I said, based on the call today. I wasn't sure I was going to even do a video today, but I was just like, I had just gotten my second to last check from my last engagement, and I was like, so I was going down to the bank. I wanted to deposit it because somehow or another I screwed up my direct deposit, so they sent me a live check, which was scary in and of itself, because I'm out in the rural areas. So, mailman can get here somewhere between 9 in the morning and 6 o'clock at night, and so it's go either way. So on my drive to the bank, I decided to take a ride down to Easton, Pennsylvania, because I had to make a stop somewhere else, and I was really thinking about the conversation. And I'm like, and I was thinking more about it, and I said, I think I want to expand on this a bit and do a video. This will only be my 4th video in my vlog, but it was something that the more I thought about it, the more I kind of just needed to get it off my chest and what my thoughts and feelings are behind it. So whether you're changing, this is why I treated that R&D project, the R&D to GMP project, very similar to a remediation, because it's a culture change. But I am definitely, being based on bad experiences and great experiences, definitely more aware and spending more time asking deliberate type questions to really find out what the true intentions of the project are. If they are true to their origins and want to see it through, they should be able to answer the questions I have to ask directly. If I start seeing we really, we just want to get through this, and then I realize it's a dog and pony show, and I don't want to be a part of the dog and pony show, because it's not my cup of tea, But that's all I kind of wanted to talk about, get a little bit off my chest on it. Again, sorry for the hoarse voice, and I'm just a little tired. Had a lot of things going on at my house over the weekend, and not that it's really anybody's concern. Is I did want to get this out, but there was also a friend who lost one of their children last week, so who happened to be very close with everybody. So it took a little bit of a toll on me. Known this person since they were, knee high, and at 23 years of age, they're no longer with us. So that taken a little bit of a toll on me as well. But at the same time, still got to remain focused in what I do, keep myself sharp. Something I just wanted to talk about, get it off my chest. I'm really curious as to what you folks think. So those of you that watch the video, please, watch it, skip through it, whatever. But let's have a little discussion below in the comments, especially on LinkedIn, and see what you think. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. If I don't get to talk to you or shoot another video between now and the end of the week, have a happy and safe Thanksgiving, everybody. And please remember, if you're going out to party Wednesday night, designated driver, Uber something, please, on that. But again, have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for your time. Bye.